What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Scrubbe channel. I didn't really know what to make today, so I figured I would just react to this Reddit thread I found about spoiled rich kids that are insanely out of touch. What's the worst case of rich kid syndrome you've seen? Let's get into it.
Don't know what I'm doing here.
You know, I just figured making fun of spoiled rich kids kind of fits the new financial side of the channel, but also is really entertaining, so let's go. I've posted this before, but I need to say first off the bat that this is about my best friend and she's the best person I know, not a normal rich kid or anything. I was complaining about how I was short on money one month and couldn't go out to eat because I had to pay rent and pay for a tag renewal all in the same paycheck. She looked at me super seriously and was like, "Don't worry, they send you those in the mail for free." After a long discussion, she learned, in fact, her mom had been paying for her new tags every year. See, this is like accidentally having rich kid syndrome, you know. No, don't worry, your license automatically renews every year. No, dude, your parents have been paying hundreds of dollars for it. Oh, oops. I worked as a bouncer at a high-end nightclub. The biggest douche of a rich kid, straight out of Malibu's Most Wanted, gets a VIP booth and bottle service and racks up a massive bill trying to act like a baller. His credit card gets denied and he has to call his dad to come down at 1:30 a.m. because he can't order any more. His dad comes down in pajamas, obviously ashamed and furious at the douche of a kid, and ends up embarrassing him in front of his whole group of friends, takes the kid's keys and is about to leave when the kid makes some comment and goes back to the club. The dad was about to walk away after he apologizes for his son when we offer to drag him out the rough way and he smiled and accepted it. That kid had every door and step on the way out. Not the best story, but was the most satisfying experiences working at the club. Yeah, I feel like that's just a huge lack of self-awareness. Screw you, Dad, I'm gonna go back in and spend more of your money, douchebag. And he's like, excuse me? Would you like us to beat up your son, sir? I never thought I'd be saying this, but absolutely, please make it rough. Don't know if it qualifies as rich kid syndrome, but when I got out of the Navy, I used my GI Bill at a Penn State satellite. I was sitting in the cafeteria drinking coffee and typing a paper when a girl sat down across from me and opened her backpack. She pulled out a sandwich bag and looks at it in disgust and looks me dead in the eye and says, "I don't even know why I bother. My mother never cuts off the crust." I let out one of those high-pitched short laughs like, is this girl for real? Obviously to the tone of it, she says, "I know, right?" and asked me if I want it. I looked around thinking I was pranked or something because it's too stereotypical to be real and I assumed I was being filmed. She shook it at me and gave me a well look. So I said F it and took the sandwich, and she pulled out her student ID and bought a crap ton of french fries. That sandwich was awesome, and I think the bread was homemade and stacked like a dagwood. It had all kinds of expensive looking meats and Dijon mustard, serious gourmet crap. I know this girl's mother will never see this, but I just want you to know I appreciated the sandwich. "Yeah, Mom, your stupid sandwich that you made with love, it sucks. I can't believe you try to give me a free lunch every day. Time to go spend some of your money on some fries instead." Meanwhile, she's like feeding just half the student population with just one sandwich a day because there's so much food on it. This case isn't too bad and it's a bit funny. I became friends with a kid whose family was really well off. He was a nice guy but a bit sheltered and university was the first time he'd had independence. But he had very little sense of what a value of a dollar was since his folks got him what he wanted compared to what normal people would spend. There was one time he wanted us to eat at a restaurant and he told us it's really good. So we all walked up and the price for a main course started at $40 to $60, which us as poor university students couldn't afford. When he realized it, he was so embarrassed he got his folks to pay for it. He finally wised up a few years later once he got more independent and away from his family and made his own money and remains one of the best guys I know. Oh, once again, dude, so far just a lot of self-exposure. What do you mean you guys can't afford to pay $60 for each course of this meal? There's 8 courses. Get with the times or don't be poor. Those are your options, Danny. In high school, a kid was bragging that he got in his third fender bender in his old car and that his parents gave him it, that he hated it. So his parents bought him an entirely new car, which was the current year, to incentivize him to drive better. That's just some really flawed logic to me. Our moron of a son has somehow managed to get a third car accident, right? So obviously we should buy him a brand new car because he'll care about it more. Or you should take away the keys, dude. 3 fender benders within like a year of driving is seriously impressive work. You either have horrible luck or you're trying to crash that car. My mom's friend used to buy new clothes each season and throw out the old ones. She had to be taught by her husband to save them for next year. This happened way back in the 50s. Her family was rich and he was a normal guy. Could you imagine that? Honey, the weather is nice now, so I threw away my winter coat. We don't want something that stupid cluttering up the closet. What? That was a $6,000 coat. Okay, and it's a $6,000 piece of trash now. What do you want me to wear it 2 seasons in a row? What's wrong with you? Worked with a kid who was a good kid, but completely disconnected from financial reality for most people. He'd just moved out west from another state and was trying to get on like a normal adult. He went to buy a new car and was shocked they couldn't just bill his dad for it since they didn't know him. He ordered a bottle of wine at the restaurant, and when the sommelier said, "Certainly, sir," and then whispered about how it's $700, he looked at him and said, "Is that a lot?" The sommelier honestly didn't know how to answer. Good kid and he got better, just didn't know how to do it. Once he casually told his mom he needed some help with bills, and she put 20 grand into his account. What type of bills does his mom think she has, bro? Like, oh, he must have at least 4 houses with a full maid staff. 20 grand ought to cover the little bit of help he needs. Bro, I wish my parents were giving me $20,000 a month to help out with bills. My goodness, I get a whole grand total of 0. I worked at a Starbucks and we hired a new guy who I was training, and at one point I had to show him how to clean the restroom. So I grab the bleach, hand him a pair of gloves, and he looks at me in disgust and says, "We don't have a maid to clean the bathrooms?" He quit the next day. Well, believe it or not, young man, you are the maid. Yeah, that's right. No, there isn't somebody that does all the cleaning for the minimum wage job people, all right? Obviously, I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. A job's a job, but the fact that this guy didn't realize that being a maid is a job is next level, dude. When I was in boarding school, one of my co-boarders handed me some mail saying, "Do you notice anything special about it?" And when I checked out, I realized his face was on the stamp. He was royalty. I feel like flexing on anybody by making them look at a stamp with your face on it just isn't as impressive as you think it is. And on top of it, I feel like flexing royalty is probably the least cool thing to flex. At least if you're flexing that your dad invented a company or something, it means that your dad's smart and invented something. If you flex that you're royalty, it's cool, bro, you won the birth lottery, congrats. I work for a dentist and her son's a spoiled brat. He was at the office one day because she had to bring him to an appointment later, and he got bored and went out wandering to some of the local shops. He came back a little while later and without any preamble walked up to her and said, "Give me $80. She asked him what it was for and he just repeated himself and she gave it to him. "Give me $80. What's it for? Give me $80. I wonder what he could be buying. Clearly he doesn't want to tell me. It could be something dangerous, like drugs. Here's $80, son. Good luck." Maybe she low-key thinks he's annoying too, so she's like, well, maybe if I give him money and he buys something stupid enough, it's not my problem anymore. This is pretty tame, but it's what I got. I used to work as an after-school babysitter for a loaded doctor couple with 2 kids, and my job was to pick up the younger kid from school and hang out till his parents got home. He was a good kid, but coddled and immature. He was in 5th or 6th grade at this point, and oftentimes he would not be at his classroom when I came to get him, and the school campus was huge. Different buildings, classrooms, courtyards, playgrounds, the works. If he wasn't there, I had to comb the campus, and it was rarely that he was in the same place twice. He had a cell phone, but would ignore its existence except for playing games on it in the car. The school was in the city, and I had to park on the street, and a couple times I wound up with parking tickets, despite having stuffed the meter with enough quarters to presumably result in ample time, because the search would take much longer than anticipated. After a point, I mentioned this to him and calmly asked that he respect my time and stay in the section so that way I don't end up with a $25 ticket again. "Well, it's not that much. You can afford that. Sonny, your parents paid me $140 a week and I was in college. I know you live in a $1.4 million house and your dad buys an expensive toy every Sunday, but with the money they're forking over for your education, someone ought to have taught you by the value of $1 by now." But honestly, he was a nice kid. They moved away and I hope he's doing well. I know he said he's nice, I just don't know how nice it is to have somebody say, "Hey, I really didn't appreciate that you got me a ticket," and then look at you and be like, well, that's not my problem, you can afford it, bozo. Dude, what in the world? Imagine being a kid and making it feel like someone getting a ticket's not your problem because whatever, money just fixes everything. A friend of mine inherited a lot of money, enough to buy a house and spend it on 2 cars, a Subaru completely modeled to the Ken Block's version, and some BMW, both expensive. We asked a few months later why he didn't buy a house because he still lived with his parents. So he told us that he already owned a penthouse, he just didn't want to move in yet. Yeah, this one, the only thing I'm iffy about is if this is legit, you know? The only thing this makes me think about is like, you know, a guy's imaginary girlfriend up in Canada. He's like, oh crap, I did spend my money on a bunch of dumb stuff. No, I did buy a penthouse too. I just don't really like it. I could absolutely survive on my own. My parents just pay for my food and house, but I pay for everything else. If I got a job, I could pay for my food and house too. Said at 18 in the middle of a discussion between two middle-class peers who were talking about saving money because they had to pay for their own college and living expenses. About 5 minutes prior to that conversation, both peers ordered cheap dinner options and declined a shopping trip later, while the rich girl was talking nonstop about buying the best, most expensive souvenirs for her friends. They once tried working a regular person job and quit within a couple weeks because it just wasn't right and I didn't like it. Moved across the country for an 8-month education course where her parents paid for food, rent, and school, and they also gave her a debit card which replenishes up to $500 when it hits 50. She still posts on Snapchat with captions of "that broke person life" over pictures of her getting Starbucks every day and insists she could survive on her own. Constantly suggests the most expensive options for meals and activities and tracks on things like, "can we just split the bill? I know you're saving, but it's just $50. You'll be alright, right?" And then gets upset when people can't afford to spend time with her or when someone dares to suggest she helps cover the cost. This just sounds like a recipe for somebody never understanding the meaning of hard work ever. Like it literally is just going to be a foreign concept for the remainder of all space and time until the inevitable heat death of everything in the universe, which is inevitable, inevitably. Friend got a theater with an arcade built over their family's 12-car garage. The parents didn't want the sister to be jealous, so they hired an architect to design and build her a fully functioning playhouse with bathroom, AC, and bedroom. Just the tip of the iceberg with this family, though. The father built a mini racetrack for his Lotus Esprit at his lake house and also built a mega yacht with a garage for what most of us would consider a large boat on it. Surprisingly, he never really used it more than once or twice, an impulse purchase. The house, more aptly called a castle, was filled with game from African safaris taken in the 70s and 80s. The wife bought a popular fast food franchise unavailable in our area because she didn't like having to drive the 30 minutes to get what she wanted. Once, when I was swimming in the waterfall pool with the sun, my mom called and reminded them I needed to be home for some sports event or something, and we hopped in the Bentley dripping wet. It was the first time my feet ever touched a fur floor car, soaking wet at that. At the Millennium, the father was into tattoos and regularly spent tens of thousands of dollars to fly the best tattoo artists in the world from Japan and LA to work on his Yakuza style, sash tattoo. I could go on and on. But the number one thing that qualifies as rich kid syndrome is the father who had inherited the business from his father, sold the business overseas in the late 80s. The company was the only reason the town had to exist, and ever since, the community has been recognized as the most oppressed in the state, and schools unequivocally are the absolute worst. Honestly, this just sounds like something that you would expect to see on a Netflix special about, like, this man sold off his company's assets, and that's why this town is destroyed. You know, it doesn't sound like something that would actually be real life. Regardless, even if you are loaded, letting people put their wet feet on the floor of your Bentley just doesn't seem like the most responsible idea. Anyways, guys, I think that's gonna do it. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to press the like button. Let me know in the comments section down below what you thought, and of course, subscribe if you're new. If you like the intro song, it's by my friend Pancho. You can find a link to it in the description. Feel free to go check it out. Beyond that, there's a link to my podcast, The Scuffed Cast, or of course, you could use code SCRUBBY at the G Fuel checkout. It's a great way to get a discount on G Fuel and help me out at the same time. And the last link that you're gonna find down there in the description is a link to my merch store. So if you go ahead and click that, you can get yourself a t-shirt or any of the other super cool merch there. No regrets, coolest merch to ever exist. If you get it, your swag points will be quadrupled. And yeah, on that note, guys, I think that'll actually do it for the video. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot, and hopefully I will see each and every single one of you guys next time in another video. I'll see you guys, and I'm out. Peace.